Hello everyone. Today we will see how to create virtual machines and how to create different lab environment for testing and development purpose. Today we will talk about why virtual machine is required, what is virtualization, virtual machine softwares, how to install VMware Workstation, how to create virtual machines, and we will also install Windows and Linux operating system in the virtual machine. And then we will see different features of virtual machines like the networking, snapshots, and how to clone the virtual machines. So let's go ahead. So the first topic is why is virtual machine required? Everyone has one or two virtual laptops or desktop machines. However, if we want to do testing of specific applications or if you are developing an application, then it makes sense to have a dedicated different machine. And that's why there we can use virtual machine. Instead of buying a new laptop or desktop, we can create virtual machines in the same physical hardware for the laptop which you already have. And virtual machines are easy to provision. You can deploy multiple machines on one single computer. It can also save your cost since you don't need to buy multiple physical systems, and it can increase your productivity. You can easily create a DevOps environment, testing lab environment. And so these are some of the benefits of the virtual machine. So to create a virtual machine, we need some software, and that software is called virtualization, or that technology is called the virtualization. So what's virtualization? Virtualization is the process of running a virtual instance of computer system in a layer abstracted from the actual hardware. Most commonly, it refers to running multiple operating systems on a computer system simultaneously. It means we will be able to run multiple operating systems at the same time on the same physical hardware. On one single laptop, we can run two or three different operating systems in completely isolated environment and do the testing. And once testing is completed, you can delete the machines and still your physical operating system, your physical laptop and the operating system installed on that, it will work as it is. There will be no changes on your operating system. Then the what is hypervisor? Hypervisor is a program for creating and running virtual machines. So that's the application software which we will be using to create a virtual machine instance. What are the hypervisor types? So basically, there are two types of hypervisor. One is called bare metal, and second type is the hosted. So bare metal hypervisor is directly installed on the physical computer, or you can say physical machine, and it directly runs your machines, virtual machines on that specific system hardware. However, in second type of bare metal that is hosted, hypervisor software is installed on the base operating system, and then it uses the base operating system to access the physical resources for your virtual machine. We will see the hosted type of hypervisor in detail. So there are different type of virtualization softwares available. The first one is the hosted virtualization, and so it is also called desktop virtualization. It is there are the below are the some of the main virtualization software vendors for the hosted virtualization. Those are VMware Workstation, VMware Fusion, which is available on the Mac operating system. Then on Windows, Microsoft also provides the Hyper-V, and then there is a VirtualBox. The first two are a licensed product. However, you can use Hyper-V on Windows if that's inbuilt it on the Windows operating system. And you for the personal and training purpose, you can use VirtualBox also. However, the commercial version of VirtualBox is licensed. So make sure you check the licensing before using any software product. And then there is a different bare metal virtualization softwares which directly gets installed on the physical hardware. And that's also called as a server virtualization or data center virtualization. And the softwares are VMware ESXi or the VMware vSphere product family. Then there is a Xen virtualization, Hyper-V, Red Hat virtualization, and then there is a KVM, which is an open source virtualization platform. Then let's see, since in this lab we are going to see how we can create virtual machine on the laptop or on the desktop machine. So we have to go with the VMware Workstation software, which is a hosted virtualization solution. Let's see what are the requirements to install the top VMware Workstation. We need a 64-bit compatible CPU, mostly launched after 2011 or the latter. We need minimum 3 gigahertz or faster CPU speed. We need minimum 2 GB RAM is required. However, the more RAM you have, that's better, since because we, along with your base operating system, we need to assign RAM and CPU to your virtual machines also. If you have limited number of memory, then we will not able to create multiple or lots of virtual machine on your laptop. Host operating system. So to install VMware Workstation, we need Windows 8 or the latter operating system, and also it can be installed on Red Hat Linux, Ubuntu, and SUSE Linux. We can download the evaluation version of VMware Workstation from VMware website. Let's go to the next slide. Then how to create a virtual machine. So virtual machine, it does support multiple operating systems, and let's see. So this is the list of operating systems which are supported by VMware uh, for creating the virtual machines. And let's see the lab, how to download and install VMware workstations. Okay, you can launch Firefox or any preferred browser on your machine, and then search for VMware workstation, and you can go to the official website of VMware or any product which you are trying to download. Always go to the official website. And now here, this is the official page of the VMware workstation. And if you want to buy, you can try and buy, or you can download a trial version also, or you can buy it online right from here. And for Windows, download now. Or if you have Linux, you can download it for Linux also. So I have already downloaded it to save the time. Once the installation of VMware Workstation completes, then you can launch the VMware Workstation from the Start menu, or you can search in the search box. You can see these are the already machines which you have created. Let's see how we can create a new virtual machine. You can click on File from the top menu, then click on New Virtual Machine. Select the Custom option. You can also select the typical. When you select the typical option, then automatically VMware will suggest the hardware for your virtual machine. If you go with the custom option, then you can modify or adjust the settings for your virtual machines. Select the compatibility mode, keep the default or whatever is the latest, then click next. Then select the I will install the operating system later, and then click next. Select the operating system type, like are you installing Windows, Linux, or VMware ESXi, or some other operating system. So for this demo, first we will install Microsoft Windows operating system, and keep the Windows 10, then click next. Now give the name for your virtual machine. I will say Windows 10 test. Okay, and select the location where you want to keep the virtual machine files. So by default, it's going on cu colon virtual machine, but for in your case, the path might be different. So you can click on browse and select the path where you want to store these files. Then click next. Then select the firmware type. For latest operating system, always go with UEFI, which is default in our case also. Click next, and then select the number of CPUs you want to assign to your virtual machine. It's always better to go ahead with the minimal CPU and memory allocation. Later on, if you need more memory or CPU for your machine, then you can allocate it. So right now I'm assigning two CPUs for our VM. Then click next. Same for memory. I'm going with the default settings like 2 GB memory. You can adjust the memory size as per our requirement. Then click next and select the network type. So as of now, we will go ahead with the default, which is the network address translation. We will discuss more about this option in our upcoming slides. Then click next. Keep the default IO controller. Select the disk. I have NVMe disk on my laptop, that's why I'm getting this option. You can select the SCSI or ID disk also, but again, go with the default option that should work for you. Select next, create new virtual disk since it's a new VM which we are trying to create. Now you can create a single disk uh, or you can have multiple disk files created. So I always prefer to go with one single large disk and specify the size of the disk which you want to assign. Then I have selected 60 GB. Again, at the beginning, it will not consume 60 GB from your hard disk, but make sure that you have enough free space available on your physical disk. Then click next, select the file name, or you can also browse and select the location where you want to store this file. Then click next. You can customize the hardware configuration right from here, or we can do that later also. So I will say finish now. Okay, so yes, here it is. Here is our new virtual machine which we just created. And now, before we start our virtual machine, we need to connect the ISO file to this virtual machine so that we can install the operating system. Select the CD-ROM and then select use ISO image file and then click on browse. So we now need to provide the Windows 10 ISO image so that we can install the operating system. Select the connect at power on so that this CD-ROM will get connected to the virtual machine. Again, you can adjust the VM CPU memory settings or change the disk size and modify some other hardware options right from here. For now, let's click on OK. Now we can start our virtual machine. You can click on this power on this machine, or we can right click here and access the additional action menus. So now I have started the virtual machine. Here you and then click inside and select any key. So now my boot options are timeout. So I can say click Control Alt Insert. And then now again it will prompt me to press any key to start the installation setup. You should quickly hit enter once you get inside the virtual machine. Otherwise, you can always restart the virtual machine by pressing Control Alt Insert keys together. So now the Windows installation process has started. This is the usual Windows installations process. Uh, Click next, click install. You have to follow the Windows OS installation steps. Again, these are pretty much common Windows installation steps. It can be no matter where you are installing it, can be a virtual machine or it can be your physical machine, laptop or desktop system. The method don't change or the sequence will remain same for the OS installation. Click next and click new to create a new partition. Okay, and next. And now the OS installation has started on our first Windows virtual machine. So what we can do now, we will go ahead and create one more virtual machine, and that will be a Linux virtual machine. While the Windows OS installation is going on, we can create new virtual machine for the Linux purpose. Click next. So again, we'll go through the default options. Now here, click Linux and select the Ubuntu 64-bit operating system. And then click next. Give it a name and then click next. Keep the default memory CPU. Network is default. Disk default settings. Create new disk. Again, store a virtual disk as a single file. Uh, Give the size of the virtual disk. Again, it's depend on what kind of data you are going to store in the disk. Later on, if needed, you can increase the size of this disk. Then click next, next, finish. So this way we have created a new virtual machine for Linux also. Let's attach the ISO file to this machine so that we can install the Linux operating system. So we are going to install Ubuntu Linux in this machine and then click on OK. I will just reduce the memory for this machine. We don't need too much memory for this VM, and then click on power on. So in case of Linux operating system, VM is able to start the virtual machine from ISO. It did not prompt me to press any key unlike Windows. So now Ubuntu OS installation process has started. Now you can notice one yellow line here, kind of pop-up bar. It is suggesting us to install the VMware tools. So VMware Tools is the application which we need to install once our OS operating system installation completes. That will help us to improve the speed of your operating system. It will install additional drivers which are needed for your virtual machine operating system. So overall user experience will get increased once you install the VMware tools. Since we are still installing the operating system, I'm just ignoring it. I'll say remind me later. Okay, so right now Windows installation is also going on in our virtual machine, and also the Linux Ubuntu OS installation is also in progress. So while the installation is still going on, we can go back to our slide deck. Okay, so we just discussed like what all operating system we can install the virtual machine. We saw how to create a virtual machine. We followed the VM creation wizard. Then also we followed the operating system installation. And again, I'm here back on the VMware workstation. Since we are installing the Ubuntu Linux, click on install Ubuntu, select the keyboard layout. We will go ahead with the default settings, click continue. Then again, we can go ahead with the default option. If you want to install the software updates, you can select that option. You can go ahead with the minimal installation also, but again, here we will go with the default, which is the normal installation. And I do not want to install updates right now. Click continue. If your mouse gets stuck during the installation process, then you can always select the Control and Alt key together, and your mouse will get released from the virtual machine console. So this is called the virtual machine console also. So select the installation type. We want to erase the current disk and install operating system. So this will erase the data from the virtual disk, not from your laptop disk. So we will select that one and click on install now. So this will start the Ubuntu installation. Click on continue so that it can erase the data from the disk and create new partition layout. So the installation of Ubuntu has started, and again it's asking to select the time zone, which it did automatically. We have to select continue. Uh, Give a username. We can say PS user. It can be any username, or you can give your full name also. And here I will say PS user. Give a strong password. And then if you want this user to log in automatically, then you can click on login automatically. Then click continue. So Ubuntu will create a new user uh, as per the name which you have given, and we can log into the Ubuntu machine using that user. And by default, Ubuntu do not allow to log in with root user account. But later on, once the OS installation completes, you can set the password to Ubuntu root user and use that one. Okay, now let's see the status of Windows. So Windows installation is almost ready. While it is still going on, let's go back to slides. Okay, we saw how to create the virtual machines. We also install the operating system. We install Windows 10 and Ubuntu OS installation is in progress. We should have the ISO files of the operating system so that we can do the installation. Once the OS installation completes in the virtual machine, we will see the basic OS settings, and then we can also see VM console, and then we can also see try to access this virtual machine's network. Then what makes a virtual machine? So we are saying virtual machine. So what is exactly virtual machine and what happened after creating the virtual machine? So virtual machine using VMware Workstation, we are able to create virtual multiple instances of the computer. So right now I have only one laptop. However, I need multiple operating systems or multiple machines. So I am able to create multiple virtual instances of the Windows operating system and the Linux operating system using VMware Workstation software. However, whenever we create a virtual machine, it also any machine, if it is a laptop or a virtual machine, it requires some resources like CPU, memory, hard disk, and network adapter. So this VMware workstation, it creates the virtual memory, virtual processor, virtual hard disk, and virtual network adapters also. And then it also creates some additional sound cards and other virtual adapters. Again, though these adapters are virtual, VMware Workstation interact with the base operating system, which is Windows 10, and then it interacts with the physical hardware to execute the processes running in the virtual machine. So it at the end it requires the physical hardware, physical CPU cycles to run your virtual machine. Workstation is just a facilitator program which uh, allow you to create multiple virtual machines. So let's see after creating virtual machine what has happened. So we can go here under the settings and we can see where our files are located. So this is the path where our virtual machine files are stored. And if we browse it, here we can see the different virtual machine type. So basically, all the configuration of virtual machine gets stored in the VMX file. Then we have VMX file. Then this is the snapshot file. As of now, we don't have any snapshot created. We will discuss more about the virtual machine snapshot. So this is the metadata for the snapshot. VMDK is the virtual disk file. VMware stores the disk data in the VMDK format. Microsoft stores in the just VHD format or VHDX format, and then there are different vendors which use different file format for the virtual disk. And all the NVRAM related configuration gets stored in the .nvram for the VMware. We can see the logs in the VMware.log file. Again, these files will be separate for each instance of virtual machines. Now, these files are only for the Windows 10 virtual machine which we just created. For the Linux virtual machines, there will be a different set of files. And again, this is the state of your virtual machine. These are these files will contain all the data, all configuration information for your virtual machine. So let's go back here and continue the Windows 10 setup before we go back to slides. Let's see the Ubuntu setup. Ubuntu is also going on. Okay, so these are the file types like we discussed about the VMX, VMFX. We can see the detailed description of each file type. Once we create the snapshot, we can have VMSN or VMSD files also. Also, when we power on the virtual machine, VMware also create one swap file in case we don't have enough physical memory. VMware will utilize the VM swap file as a temporary memory space to run your processes. Virtual machine networking. Okay, so before we go to virtual machine networking, Let's see the setup. Okay, it is still going on. Okay, let's discuss about the virtual machine networking. So VMware provides three types of networking option. Again, each software vendor provides a different set of networking options. Uh, I found that VMware has better or very user-friendly configuration option for this type of network settings. In case of VirtualBox, there will be some different name, or again for Hyper-V also there will be a different name for these terms. However, VMware workstation configuration is most easy, so that's why we are going through we are using VMware workstation. So the first type of networking is the bridge networking. So with bridge networking, the virtual machine has direct access to your Ethernet network. So it will directly access your Ethernet network, which is in your laptop, and the virtual machine will interact with your external network. It will get the its or the virtual machine will get its own IP addresses from your wireless or your router or your DHCP server, and you can also configure the static IP from the or the bridge network also. The second type of network is the network address translation. So with a NAT, the virtual machine and the host system share a single network identity that is not visible outside the network. So NAT, in case of NAT, for external connectivity, your virtual machine will share the physical network adapter which is on your machine. The virtual machine will still have its own internal IP address assigned. However, when it communicates with the external network, it will utilize your laptop's IP address for the communication, for to access the internet or access the external resources. Again, this is useful when you don't want to expose your virtual machine laptop to your other network. The second or the third networking type is the use host-only networking. Host-only networking provides a network connection between the virtual machine and the host system using a virtual network adapter that is visible to the host operating system only. It also means that when you are using a host-only network, your virtual machine cannot communicate with other external network of your laptop. It will only communicate with your laptop and the virtual machine, else which are running on that laptop. No, it cannot access internet. It cannot go outside to access your routers, printers, and that communication will be blocked. Let's see what is virtual machine snapshot. A virtual machine snapshot is the state of virtual machine that is copied and stored at a specified time. When you take a snapshot of a virtual machine, it stores the current state of virtual machine. It can be in powered off state or it can be in a running state. So the state will include the operational state of the VM. As I said, if it is a running virtual machine, it can capture the contents of your memory, and if you exclude the memory content, it will by default it will include all the files which belongs to that virtual machine. It can have all the settings. It will store everything in this snapshot state. So the snapshot will be useful for the temporary backup and restoration purpose. Let's assume that you are installing some patches on your operating system, or you are modifying the operating system, and you are worried about if something goes wrong, then there would be some other issues. And in that case, you can take the snapshot, do the modification, and once your changes are complete, then you can delete the snapshot if you don't need it. But if something goes wrong in the change modification process, then you can revert to the previous state of the machine using the snapshot, which you had taken before modifying the settings. So this way it will help you to speed up your development process. It will help you to speed up the testing process. And if there are errors, you can easily go back to previous state. And this is what we cannot do with the physical machine. On the physical machine, we cannot go to the previous working state without more doing lots of changes. Okay, let's go to we will see this in action, how to create a snapshot, how to revert, and how to delete the snapshot. And see what is virtual machine clone. Cloning a virtual machine creates a virtual machine that is a copy of the original. So we can create an identical virtual machine uh, from one machine to we can deploy multiple virtual machines. That clone virtual machines will have the same identical hardware, it will have the same installed softwares, or whatever settings you have done in the original machine, it will be the new machine will have those same settings or same operating systems. We will see how to create a virtual machine in the lab. So first, let's go back to our VMware workstation. So we have reviewed the uh, virtual machine files. Now we can play around with the virtual machine networking setup. But before that, let's complete the operating system installation. Ubuntu is restarting the machine, and Windows we don't set up for personal use. We don't need it for organization. So I will finish the setup and then I will come back again. So basically, I selected to create the offline account creation, and now I'm creating a local account. I do not want this machine to be integrated with Azure or cloud or any Microsoft accounts. I'm giving the password, click next, confirm the password. Okay, let's give something, get next. To protect your username password, you can provide the correct information, but I'm just to complete the setup, I'm giving anything there. Okay, accept default settings. Let's skip this one. So while the Windows installation is still going on, it's still completing some of the post-installation steps. We can go to the VM networking settings or the workstation network settings. Click on Edit and click on Virtual Network Editor. So this is where we can see all the settings or the all networking options available with us. So by default, VMware creates this VMNet 1 and VMNet 8. If you want, you can click on change settings and add the additional networks. Also, it install the DHCP service so that the virtual machine can get the IP address from the DHCP. Again, by default, it has selected the DHCP range. So most of the time, we don't need to modify this setting. However, for individual VM settings, you can select the virtual machine and right click, go to settings, and then select the network adapter. And so this is from where you can modify the settings. So right now, this virtual machine is configured to use NAT IP address. It means for external communication, this virtual machine will share the underlying base operating system's Ethernet adapter. However, we want this machine to directly communicate with internet. It should not use the underlying physical network adapter for sharing the identity. So I will select bridge. Okay, and or if you are creating a lab environment and like you are testing some software, you do not want this software to communicate with your laptop or any other system in your network, then you can also click on host only. And again, if you want to completely isolate this virtual machine from your operating system, then you can go with these additional other options. In that case, your virtual machine will not able to communicate with your other virtual machine, and it can also cannot communicate with the base operating system. So for our this setup, I will click on host only, or let's say do bridge also, so that we can access the internet. Click on OK. And here now you can see the IP address will get changed. And if I go to the command prompt to check the IP address, Yep, it has found the IP network, and we can say the machine has got the IP address from DHCP. So basically, it got the IP address from my DHCP server, and this is the gateway for that. And now we can like the IP address configuration is completed. Let's enable the remote desktop for this machine. This is Windows 10, and and then go to remote settings. Click on remote. Click on allow. Apply. Okay. And while you are in control panel, you can modify few other settings. You can change the name of the machine. Uh, but in our case, I'm not going to do that. And since the remote connection is enabled, I have the username and password. But again, the most important things in case of virtual machine is about the integration tools or the VMware tools. Uh, you can see the resolution is very small, and if you want to enhance the resolution or ch- enable advanced features, then we should be installing VMware tools. You can click on the select virtual machine, right click on that, and then click on install. Right now, I have started the installation. That's why I'm getting cancellation menu. So now this will mount the installation ISO to the virtual machine. Double click on the CD-ROM to start the setup. Click yes if prompted. And now it is installing the VMware tools. Let's complete the VMware tools installation. Select the next install. Once this installation completes, your virtual machine will get restarted, and then we will see the enhanced experience for the mouse, keyboard, and also the desktop resolution. You can see it is installing memory, video drivers. Let's see the Linux setup. Yes, so we are in our Ubuntu operating system. Okay, I'll skip this account creation. We don't need it. Don't send. Okay, so we have on Ubuntu also the installation setup has been completed, and I will restart the Windows VM. Yes, please. Okay, so let's go to Ubuntu, and here you can right click and start the terminal. I'll switch to root. That will be easy to do all the tasks. Yep. Okay, apt install net. Okay, the ipconfig to command is not available by default, but if you want, you can install this package net-tools, which will enable the ifconfig command for you on Ubuntu. Another way of checking IP address is to IP space ADDR, and we can see the IP address which is received from the DHCP. So again, for this laptop also, the default setting is NAT, and let's keep it NAT. We don't need internet access on this machine, and still I can show you how you can access this virtual machine from your laptop. Okay, so this is the VM console which we are accessing. VM console is only for the management related task. You can use the remote desktop services or RDP, or also you can access the specific service running in the virtual machine. Like if you have installed the website, you can directly access that website from your laptop browser. Right now, we are still configuring the OS, virtual machine OS. That's why we are accessing the VM console. Okay, let's try to ping the laptop IP address, virtual machine IP address. I have opened the command prompt from my laptop, and I will ping 192.168.152.129. Yes, so you can see I am able to ping to this IP address. Okay, we can ping it. And so now you can connect to your Ubuntu machine using PuTTY or the SSH, or you can, in case of laptop, you can do RDP to the IP address of the virtual machine. Let's check the IP address of the virtual machine. Okay, now this one is using the bridge network connectivity, and even though it's a bridge, we can still connect to machine using RDP or browser in case if you have installed any web service on the virtual machine OS. And we can give it the name. Hmm, it looks like I forgot the password. Let's see, who am I? PS user, not PC user. PS user, accept the certificate, and here we go. So this is how we can create the virtual machine and the access virtual machine from your laptop using RDP. And similar to this, we can access the Linux virtual machine using PuTTY. Let's see how we can access the Linux virtual machine using PuTTY from your laptop. If you already don't have PuTTY installed in your laptop, then you can download it from online PuTTY website. Again, always refer the official website for software download. This is the official page. And again, in my case, I have already downloaded it, so I will not download it again. And now we have to enter the password IP address of the. Okay, all right. Uh, Possibly the PuTTY connection will not work right now because the the SSH server is not installed by default on Ubuntu. So let's install the SSH service, and then we should be able to access the Linux machine from or Ubuntu machine from our laptop. Before we access Ubuntu using SSH from PuTTY from remote machine, we have to install the OpenSSH server, and you can do that using apt-get space install space OpenSSH server. Now I have already switched to root. If you have not switched to root, then you can put sudo in front of the command. But now, since I'm already a root user, I can simply install apt-get install. So this is how using sudo space su command you can switch to root. Then yes, continue. Now this will download the packages required for SSH server, and it will get installed in Ubuntu. Once the SSH packages are installed, then we need to start the service, and then we can access our virtual machine from PuTTY from our laptop OS or any other network machine. Okay, let's start the systemctl start message. So we have started the service, and we can also check the status of the service. Also, we can say systemctl enable SSH. This will start the SSH service at the boot time. Okay, and I will right click on this and say restart the session so that it can connect to the previous session IP address. And PS user, give the password. This is how you can access your Linux virtual machine, using PuTTY. Now you can do anything you like. You can create bash scripting. You can run any kind of Linux commands. You can create files, install the software, or you can manage the entire operating system. Now let's see how we can create the virtual machine snapshot. So let's say we are on the Linux machine only. So what we'll do now, we will create one test file. First, I will exit the root session, And on I have logged in as a PS user and I am in my desktop directory. I will create a new file like test directory. I'm creating test file. So I have created test file. Um, I can create empty files with some random name. Okay. And now I will create a snapshot of this virtual machine. Let's say select the virtual machine, right click, and then click take snapshot. You can give a meaningful name for the snapshot, visual file change, and then click on take snapshot. So you can see it didn't took much time to complete that wizard. However, in here you can see it is saving the state of the snapshot in the snapshot files. I can power up this virtual machine since we no longer need this VM. You can shut down or click on power off also. So power off is like you are pulling the cable from your laptop or your desktop machine, pulling the power cables, and shutdown is like a graceful shutdown, like soft shutdown from your operating system. So you can see it's still saving the snapshot. And once the snapshot creation is complete, you can do the revert and you can revert to the snapshot. When you revert to the snapshot, it will take you back to the state where when you had taken the snapshot and all the changes which you had done from that point of like creation of the snapshot to the till the reverse operation, whatever data was changed during this duration will get lost. So make sure that you understand what will happen if you revert to the snapshot. Deleting snapshot will simply delete the snapshot and it will not erase any kind of data from the guest operating system. But in case, yes, if you revert to the snapshot, then it will take your virtual machine to the previous state of the VM. Somehow it is taking longer. Let me pause this video and I will start once it completes. So the snapshot creation is completed. Now we can go back to the snapshot manager and see the list of snapshots. So we can see we have created this snapshot before change. And now we will go ahead and make some modification in our operating system. Let's say uh, I have modified some settings in the operating systems. I have, let's say, deleted some important files, and let's say I will delete all these files. And now, if I check this status, so previously we had one folder and three files, but now we got only two files. And somehow, let's say we have deleted very important files, and we need those files back. And in case of physical machine, if we have the backup, then we can restore those files. But in case of virtual machine, if we have taken a snapshot before doing modifications, we can simply go back to the snapshot, uh, go to the snapshot manager and select the snapshot and click on go to. Or you can also get an option to revert. But here in case of VMware Workstation, it's saying go to. So we can click on go to, and by restoring the snapshot, the current state will be lost. And this is what I was saying. Whatever data you have modified since the taking of the snapshot, that everything will be lost. And do you still want to restore the snapshot? Yes. So we will go ahead with yes. Now VMware Workstation will revert the all data, everything to the state when you had taken the snapshot. And we are back in the business, and you can see we got our virtual machines back. Like, sorry, the files. We had deleted two files and the folder, but now you can see we got those files and folder back. But again, remember that the snapshots are meant for only for the temporary backup and restore purpose, or to revert back to the specific period in the time. These are not meant as a permanent backup solution. So make sure that you are using it carefully. And if you want a backup solution, then you should always go with the backup software. and snapshot are not for the backup. Once the usage of the snapshot completes, you can delete the snapshot, select the snapshot and click on delete. You can always delete the snapshot if you no longer required it. Now let's see how you can clone the virtual machine. So you can clone the virtual machine while it is running or if it is in powered off state. You can right click the virtual machine and select manage and click on clone. Again, from the top menu bar also, you can select the same action items. Select the virtual machine, click on VM, click on manage and click on clone. So when you clone the virtual machine, it will copy all the contents from the source or the base operating system to the new virtual machine operating system. It now, again, we will take the example of this one directory and three files. We are cloning the Ubuntu operating systems. Okay, in case of VMware Workstation, it's saying we cannot clone a virtual machine if it is in power down state. So let's power off this virtual machine and then clone it. Okay, and I will start the clone process. Clone, click next. And yes, we want to clone it from the current state of the virtual machine. VMware Workstation has one advantage that's called the create a linked clone and create a full clone. So when you select a full clone, that time it will copy everything from the source virtual machine to the new virtual machine. So our virtual machines are on C colon. I will show you the size of the files and UBU desktop 2. Okay, right now we have this many files and its total size is 7 GB, 7.44 GB. So when we select full clone, it will copy the complete 7 GB and create a new virtual machine. However, when we say linked clone, it means it will create only new files and it will link those new files to the original files. And it means it will not copy the entire 7 GB contents. It will only copy the metadata which is required to create the virtual machines. And the source files will be considered as a source for this virtual machine. So let's give it a name. I will say 3. VM name Ubuntu Desktop 3. Click Finish. And the clone creation will be very fast since it don't need to copy all the contents of the files. And let's see what is the change on our disk. So here we can see this Ubuntu 2 desktop, it got two additional disks. These are the snapshot disks because this third virtual machine is referencing these original disks. So that's why we got a snapshot here. And what is for the 3? So here also we can see it has created the disk, it has created NVRM, it has created the VMX configuration and the snapshot data metadata-based file also. However, these are just referencing, and you can see the total size of this virtual machine is only 2 MB. And because we have selected the linked clone option to create the virtual machine, and it doesn't need to copy all the contents. The benefit of linked clone is that we even we don't need lots of disk space to create virtual machines because this virtual machine will utilize the files which are already there. It will just have the pointers on with the snapshot and still it will act as a separate disk. And now we can power on the new clone virtual machine and we should be able to see all the files and folders which we had created. Even if we had installed any kind of software, we should be able to see that this virtual machine. Now, in case of Linux, we don't need to run any kind of customization to change the identity of the virtual machine or your operating system. But in case of Windows, we can run sysprep utility to change the SID of the virtual machine. And again, in case of Linux, that's not mandatory. And here we go. So on the desktop, we can see test file SD test file folder. And again, we can go back to the terminal and I'll say yes, ls. list content, and here we go. We can see the files which we just created. It was in the previous Ubuntu Desktop 2 virtual machine, which we cloned to Ubuntu 3, and we can see all the contents which had in this virtual machine, we got it in the new machine. So this way, using you can create one base gold template, and you can create multiple clone virtual machines and run it, do the modification, install the testing softwares, and once these requirements of that machine completes, you can power it off and delete the virtual machine. Once you delete the virtual machine, it will delete all the reference data which was created for this VM. Like example, if I go now we don't see the UB desktop 3 folder here. So this is the benefit of virtual machine or virtualization. Let's go back to the slide deck. So we covered what is virtual machine, how to create virtual machine, install operating system, how to access the virtual machine network and the different types of virtual network settings, how to clone a VM, how to create the snapshot. We discuss how to revert to the snapshot, and we also access the Ubuntu and Windows virtual machine from our laptop. Thanks for watching. If you like the contents of video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.